Hello, friends. Hey, we're so glad that you're here to be with us today. In the studios, we have Kendall Bridges. Kendall's pastor of Freedom Church. So glad to have you here today.
Thanks, Clay. It's great to be here.
This is really a history day for us. Last week we had Pastor Lebsack, and we'll talk about that in maybe just a few minutes. But 1989, you began pastoring in Houston, Texas.
Yes.
Where humidity was a way of life, right?
It sure was. You just had to count on your glasses fogging up every time you walked outside. That's just part of it.
You pastored at Worship Center.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your church there.
Well, we planted that church, started with about 17 people meeting in our home.
Wow. And
then we moved to a hotel ballroom, and first Sunday there had 62 people. And then over the next 15 years, we were in that hotel ballroom for a couple of years, then a storefront building, and then we found a church building in 25 acres that were for sale. So we bought that, and it was amazing. Actually, while we were in the hotel, we started doing street outreach, and we started going down to the streets of Houston, and we would send buses down on Sunday mornings and pick up the homeless and bring them to church. And I didn't realize then that, because I got a little frustrated one time about the fruit. I thought, man, there's just not enough fruit in our labor. And I had one of my pastors and mentors told me, said, don't get discouraged because you may be looking in the wrong place for the fruit. Mm. He said, I started doing street ministry. This was Brother Howard Burris. He said, I started doing street ministry with your father in Houston. Mm. And he said, I can't tell you anybody that's saved today from our street ministry, but I can tell you about a dozen young men that are in pulpits today, pastoring churches, that got their start preaching on the streets of Houston. Mm. He said, maybe the fruit is in what's developed in those that are going out and ministering. And I started realizing, man, yeah, we were raising up a lot of young preachers. That's where they got their start, on the streets of Houston.
I read this just last week. It said farmers, when they go out and plant, they're not going to get harvest the same day.
That's right.
And as Christians, there's nothing like leading somebody to the Lord.
Yep.
Which is the harvest time, right?
Yep.
But somebody's got to till that ground.
Yes.
Somebody's got to plant that seed.
We were planting, we were harvesting, but I was looking in the wrong place, and I started realizing that God was raising up and using that soil to raise up young leaders and young preachers and young ministers. And God blessed that work. We continued to grow that church and ended up building a new 2,000-seat sanctuary on that property. And it was great until it wasn't. What I mean by that is for 15 years we had a great harvest season. God was blessing it until I allowed pride and pressure to get in the way and destroyed everything that God was doing there. Hard lesson to learn, but lost everything.
While you were there, the church was very multicultural.
Yes, it was amazing. When I was 17 years old, God gave me a dream that I would pastor a church of 2,000 people, multicultural congregation in a metropolitan city. And we experienced that right there in Houston and thought, that was it. Thought I'd reached the dream, and it was evenly divided, black, white, and Hispanic. And then, when my failures kind of uprooted everything, well, I thought, well, it's all over. But God has an amazing redemption story. And this is fast forwarding real fast, but, we came to Dallas, we planted again years later after years of restoration in my life and my family, my marriage. And, we're sitting in the middle of that dream again. We've got 8 different language-speaking services every weekend at our church, a multicultural congregation, metropolitan city. It's the dream all over again.
Now, I heard you say that. I'm not sure those that are watching or listening today heard that. You have how many different languages meeting in your church each week?
We have 8 different language-speaking services.
Yeah. Why is that important to you?
Well, one, it was a dream from God, and I'll tell you how it kind of happened. Is Starla and I, my wife and I, were eating lunch at the Grand Lux Cafe at the Galleria, North Dallas. God was, we were at Freedom Church. God was doing some good things, but when they came out to bring our check to us, they handed me the bill, and inside the little booklet was the check, and on the left side it had a little note that said, "In America, it's customary to tip 18 to 20%. Your generosity is appreciated." But it was in 6 different languages. Mm. And I showed that to my wife, and I said, "This restaurant is doing more to reach international people than we are." Mm. We had one Bulgarian congregation at that time, and that was one that was established back during Pastor Lebsack's days. And so we had that one congregation. I thought, you know what? There are international people. There are people here from all over the world, don't speak English, that will never come in our doors. And that's when we started opening up our heart and our doors. And we planted a Spanish church, a Portuguese church, and that planted another Spanish church out of it. Romani, Guatemalan, the Quiche dialect, Korean, Jewish Messianic. I may be forgetting 1 or 2, but we have 8 different language-speaking services every single weekend. And because Dallas is an international community, right. People come here to go to college from all over the world. And we just thought there are a lot of people that we're missing. And God's into harvest. He's into souls. It doesn't matter what color their skin is or what nation they came from. And so we just realized we could do more, we could reach more if we just broadened our vision. So that's what we did, and that's what we're in the middle of right now.
Hurting people are important to you.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, one is because I was one of them. Being broken, being having your purpose and your calling kind of ripped right out from underneath you and feeling like there was no hope, nowhere to go. And then God comes in and He restores and He puts it back together and gives you an opportunity, gives you another chance. Mm-hmm. How can you not extend that to others? And so, right now at Freedom Church in Dallas, our mission is about helping people find freedom. And people have hang-ups and they're in bondage to all kinds of things. And if we could just introduce them to Jesus. Jesus said, man, you know the truth will set you free. So if I can just get them to know Jesus, then they can find freedom. And that freedom may come from drug addiction. It may come from, your self-image issues. It may come from hurts from the past, from childhood and abuse. Those hang-ups may come from financial hang-ups or spiritual hang-ups, sin issues. But Jesus sets us all free. And, man, I'm passionate about helping people find that freedom.
Each week on our podcast, we try to give a little nugget to those who are listening. And this week, the verse I picked out was Galatians chapter 1, verse 4. It says, Jesus gave His life for our sins, just as God our Father planned, in order to rescue us from this evil world in which we live. I know, Kendall, you feel the same way that I do. If it was ever a time we needed a church, it's now.
Yes.
If there was ever a time to be the church, it's now. Darkness is, there are things taking place in our country that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. And so it has begun to get me to think forward. Not so much where we're at today, but where is this going? When you came to Freedom, obviously Freedom was one of the founding churches of Dallas Metro. So that's the good news. But the bad news is you kind of inherited us. Obviously it was kind of. But the good news is that you have become a very good friend, and you have been very, very supportive of what the Lord is doing in the inner city of Dallas. And so I'm really, really grateful for that. But as we begin to think forward, last week we met with Lee Lebsack, who pastored at Freedom before you came there. I probably didn't say that quite right, but You and I know what I'm saying,
Yep.
right?
He was pastor of Christian Life Assembly, and that's
Right.
we
And
became Freedom. Yeah, we
Yeah,
merged
exactly.
two churches together. And it's a story of
right.
two churches. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. So we have a need for long-term facilities for Metro. The Lighthouse, which was also one of the churches that helped us begin Metro, their pastor Louis Salazar has graciously providing land for us to build new facilities, and we're not just building for today, but we're building for the future, and we're not just building for us. We're building for this new generation, and you've met some of the kids they're still kids to us, but they're not kids. You know what I'm saying?
They're young adults now.
They are young adults, and like you said, we have planted a lot of seeds over the years, and God's been really, really good to us. First off, just churches like Freedom, pastors like yourself, that it's not like the local church doesn't have enough going on in the local church, right? And yet, pastors like yourself, it's like you going to the restaurant, and the Lord spoke to you. Whenever you saw that, you went, "Oh my, we need to be reaching more people."
Right.
That's where we're at even today. The Lord has allowed us to reach tens of thousands, and if we're honest, hundreds of thousands of kids. And yet today, we're in some ways we're at a crossroads. We have this new generation of leaders that the Lord has raised up, and we need to put them in a position to win. I'm sure that since you built the church in Houston, you know what it's like to have some financial challenges. And I'm sure when you first went to Freedom, there were some financial challenges that you had to overcome. I believe we can learn from those and not get in that position. So the dream the Lord has placed in our heart is to build these new facilities that the Lighthouse is providing this land for, and to do it absolutely debt-free.
That's amazing.
You've seen pictures, the architectural concepts, and it's Michael Cathcart, which I highly recommend. He's a good brother in the Lord. Everyone speaks really well of Michael and the stuff he's drawn so far. I mean, it's been, I was a little more than what we had in mind. You know what I'm saying? It goes back to even Metro. When we first started Metro, I really didn't know what to expect. Those who listen to the podcast have heard me say this before. When Barb and I first started, we really just wanted to serve. That's really what we wanted to do. And now, a few years later, I still have my goal. Just want to serve. But we're looking for a tool that will enable this next generation to not just serve now, but put them in a position long term. And by taking on a long-term debt, that's not putting them in a position to win. So there are pastors who are listening to us today, maybe here in Dallas, maybe somewhere across the country. What would you say to them about why should they partner with us and help us believe this for this miracle?
All right. Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I would say to any pastor that is considering partnering with you or finding a place to invest in the kingdom, Dallas Metro would be a great place to do that. First of all, because of the leadership. Clay, you and Barbara, you've given your life to this ministry, and I want to applaud you for that.
Thank you.
See, some people, they just take positions of ministry for it's a vocational notch in the belt. It's just another step, in the direction that they're headed. You guys, you've given your life to this ministry, and that is something worth sowing seed into. But it's real clear that it's not just a job, it's a mission, it's a call from God, because now you're not just interested in finding an exit strategy, you're wanting to set the next generation up. The success of this ministry is on your heart. It's a burden on your shoulders. And so I would say to any pastor, hey, get behind this and support this, because this is a ministry that is going to continue. It'll continue to reach more tens and hundreds of thousands of kids. And the young people, the young leadership that you have, they have your DNA. They have your heart. You know, I know them. I met them. We worked with them. We've through outreaches and at church services and golf tournaments.
Yeah.
And they have your DNA.
Who said God couldn't show up at a golf tournament, right?
He does, without a doubt. But they have your heart, a heart for a city, a heart for people, a heart for kids that won't ever have a chance if there's not a Dallas Metro there preaching the gospel and sharing the good news. There are kids that will literally be lost for all of eternity if somebody doesn't go and reach them. And so giving you the resources that you need to be able to have a presence in the inner city of Dallas, Texas, is necessary. So I would say to any pastor, this is the place. Sow your seed, make an investment, make a commitment, come on board, and let's make sure that Dallas Metro is here for the generations to come.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. It's very humbling to see what the Lord has done. You never know you're making history when you're making history.
Mm. Yep.
This is a history-making moment here.
Yeah.
In the All In campaign, it's not a capital campaign. It's a spiritual growth campaign. Because we realize it's going to take miracles to happen. And I believe in the people that will join with us, that will stretch their faith, and they'll believe God to not just a miracle for us, but He'll believe God to do miracles in their family and throughout their life. You know, our goal is to build this the ministry center. Something that I know is very important to you and that's prayer. You know, one of the things that the Lord laid on our hearts quite a few years ago was we need a place where people can come 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get alone with the Lord. Now, I know what it's like when you're at the, you know, people say what do you do when you're at the end of the rope? Well, the Christian thing is to say you tie a knot on that, right? What happens when there is no rope? I've been there, and fortunately, I've had great men of God just like yourself who've been in my life, who have encouraged me over the years, saying, you know, Clay, if you'll just pray. And I know that sounds Christianese, and that's not my style. But they're right. If you'll just get along with the Lord. As you mentioned, it doesn't matter what's taking place in your life. If you can just get along with the Lord. You know, one of the things we've done with kids over the years, because of so many of our kids have been abused, you know, somehow, physically, emotionally, sexually. I mean, and so when we first approached the North Texas District about this, I told the leadership, I said, if we can just get these kids out of town for a few days, because I believe if you get them along with the Lord, that healing process can begin in their life. And so that's what we've seen happen. All of us hit those bumps in the road, and where you just need to get along with the Lord. And so one of the buildings that the Lord has laid on the heart is to have a prayer chapel where people can come 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So this is something more than just the inner city. It's something that anybody in our city can come and be a part of. Kendall, I really appreciate you being here with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for being our friend and being supportive of Dallas Metro. Hey, for those of you that are watching today, thanks for being with us. Now I want to encourage you, go with us to our website at dallasmetro.org. Click on All In. All In is the campaign for the new facilities. And on that, you'll see some conceptual drawings of what the three buildings look like, the ministry center. I mentioned the prayer chapel. Also our warehouse where we're taking store food, clothing, and household items. And then also we'll have secure parking for all our vehicles. And you know, I know for some they're going, why is that important? Well, people ask all the time, you know, how many vehicles do you have running? The question is, how many do we have parts, you know, that are on the vehicle that we can use that day? So it's really important we have this secure parking. And I'm asking you today, would you prayerfully consider giving to All In? You are putting this next generation that God has raised up. You're putting them in a position to win, and you're believing for a miracle. So I'm asking you, go to our webpage today, dallasmetro.org, and make a donation. We would appreciate it very much. God bless you. See you next week.